O'Brien, and I am the president of the board of directors here at SPCA Tampa Bay. And I've been looking forward to this event for weeks. I love events like this because I'm surrounded by people who love animals and that recognize the joy that an animal can bring to your life. And all of you, just hearing the stories today about your dogs and your cats and in some cases your gerbils and hamsters and horses.
And iguanas.
And iguanas, of course. It's wonderful to see, and it's a term that we call here at SPCA Tampa Bay humanimality, and it's the bond between people and animals, and just being able to see the things that we do here as an organization to help strengthen and promote that bond. It warms my heart, and it gives me hope. So I've been privileged to be on the board for about 3 years now, and in that time I've seen such tremendous growth with our organization, that we're doing all sorts of new initiatives, working in our community to try to help promote animal welfare. We have a new partnership with the city of St. Petersburg called Better Cities for Pets, where we're doing everything we can to make sure that it's as pet-friendly as possible. As Martha alluded to, we are now helping iguanas, that iguanas need homes too, so we're doing that. But really, the sky is the limit for this organization, that, as much as we've done, where we're going is even more exciting. And a lot of that is attributed to our CEO, Martha Bowden, who is just tremendous, works tirelessly for this organization, and has just got such a tremendous vision for where we can go and what we can do to help animals and to promote the bond between humans and animals. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Martha.
Thank you.
I am so lucky as a leader to have a board president like Carrie O'Brien, and our past board president is walking back there to get some coffee, Jonathan Browie. We have an amazing leadership team. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you. We have an incredible staff team too, and I've got a number of them in the room, and many of them are sitting up here. You'll see them in either their brown shirts or at least their brown name tags, and over here as well, and some amazing volunteers that put all this together. So please give them a round of applause for helping this morning happen. So as we were getting ready for this event, Carolyn gave me what I felt like was a pretty tall challenge. She said, now this group that's coming on Friday, they know us pretty well, they've been involved with us for a long time. Let's find some cool things that we can talk about with them that will be new and interesting for them, and also get them excited about some of the stuff that's ahead for us. And that's a little tricky because, talking to an educated group it really raises the bar. So I put together some slides that I will openly confess are a compilation of some other people's presentations that I have seen over the last year or two that have really gotten me excited about what's happening in animal welfare and what our role is in animal welfare and how that has guided some of the decisions that we have made as an organization. So in the 1970s, animal sheltering was really still in its early days. I mean, shelters had been around, many of them, since the turn of the century, but really turning it into a profession and something that had some organized procedures and policies and stuff was really kind of coming into its heyday in the 70s. And I have to tell you, the numbers were staggering. We had about a little over 200 million US citizens. 40 million animals a year were going into shelters. 40 million. So when you think about that ratio between the people and the animals, that's a pretty big, interesting gap, particularly when we talk about how it has changed. So for most shelter leaders and shelter staff, this was all about the numbers. How do you get them in off the streets? How do you keep the public safe? How do you keep the animals safe? How do you make this something that can be survivable, truthfully? And unfortunately, shelters at the time were pretty depressing. It was about get them in, get them out if you can, figure out how to at least get them off the streets. How do you keep everybody moving and flowing? Millions of animals, when we were dealing with this kind of reality, were also facing euthanasia. So if you're talking about 40 million animals coming into shelters, sometimes as many as 75% of those animals had no other alternative than euthanasia. There just simply wasn't the demand in the community yet. There wasn't an awareness of how shelters could play a role. Frankly, people didn't even know how many animals were going into shelters because we didn't have the systems in place to track that. So it was a pretty tough place to start, but what's really exciting is that it changed. And what happened is we changed. So Carolyn and I both love this image because we think in basically one graphic, it explains how our world has changed. And for many of this is within our lifetime. So hopefully all of you recognize this silhouette of Snoopy. So where did Snoopy live? In the backyard, right? Almost all of his images, he was on the doghouse or near the doghouse, and who did he talk to? The bird, right? Right? So fast forward to 1980. Scooby-Doo? Who grew up watching Scooby-Doo? Yep. So he could kind of talk, right? He had some language. It was a word, but he had language, and he half the time solved the crime, right? Or at least guided the humans to solve the crime. And then where are we in the last decade or two? Brian from Family Guy, the cigarette smoking, martini drinking, robe wearing pundit who knows more than the whole family. But really that does epitomize what has changed in our world. And that has changed sheltering in a dramatic way because people expect a whole lot more from shelters, and they have animals in a completely different place in their lives. So that has completely changed this dynamic too. So now we've got over 300 million people in the United States, and only about 7 million animals are coming into shelters every year. So when you think about that short period of time from the 70s until now, so in many professionals' careers, things have changed incredibly dramatically. And it isn't just the shelters that are doing it. The shelters are responding to this, and they have a role in it, which we're going to talk about, but it's everybody playing a role in those changed numbers. This had an impact on shelters, this drop in intake, in a pretty interesting way too. Come on, there we go. So we used to get, whoops, I snuck ahead. Back, there we go. When we were taking in 40 and 50 million animals a year, a lot of them were very young, and they were what we would consider now highly adoptable, because really all they needed was probably a little bit of time, maybe a vaccination or something, and nowadays we spay and neuter. But they were pretty easy people who were looking for a new pet or often looking for a young animal, so those animals were sort of in and out. That was a lot of what we took in, and a lot of what we focused on putting out in the community. But as that wonderful event happened of the intake numbers dropping, what also changed was the kinds of animals that shelters started to work with a lot more. So it was less puppies and kittens and animals that are really only with you for a short period of time and then are off to a new home with limited medical care. It's animals with major injuries. It's animals that need surgical support. It's animals that, this little guy, the little dog on the left, some of you will recognize him as my dog Wingnut. That was after his first dental appointment with us. He lost 17 teeth. That is the tongue. Okay. The tongue is the results of the anesthesia. He's still a little groggy here. But he's a great example, and this kitty's a great example too, of animals that came to us with complex medical needs, who need more time, who need more care, who need more expertise. So the sheltering world started moving away from just a numbers game, right, of getting them in and out to, okay, they're going to be in our facility, they're going to be here for a longer period of time, and we have to do more for them. For those of you that like numbers, I know it's hard to read from the back, so I'll walk you through. This chart shows the number of euthanasias and how they changed over the years. So the dark blue line, this is 1970. We're talking about 20 to 25 million animals facing euthanasia. By the middle of the 2000s, it was under 5 million, and I can tell you now it's about 1.5 million animals a year facing euthanasia. So this is the impact of all of those changes, of advances in sheltering, of a more engaged community, of the way that people think about animals, of Animal Planet. Shows like Animal Precinct suddenly changed the way people thought about shelters because they'd never even seen the inside of a shelter, many people. And now there was this wonderful TV show that was showing these altruistic folks going out there and fighting the good fight for animals, and then animals coming back into shelters and getting behavior support and medical care. Completely changed the way that people thought about what could happen in a shelter environment. The other line shows the number of euthanasias per 1,000 residents. So that was part of the reason I wanted to show you the human population stats, because although we know our work is about animals, our work is just as much or more about people too. And we're always having to look at how those two things are related. So huge changes, huge progress, which is really, really exciting. This literally came out about 18 months ago and has taken our industry by storm. There are sessions at every conference now talking about how can we use this framework to unite our efforts, to find common ground, and to lift the conversation to a place where we can really engage the people who aren't doing this every day but want to get involved and want to support us. So I can't tell you, I mean, we are just on cloud nine that this has become a conversation. And in particular, it's exciting for us here at SPCA Tampa Bay because while this was being developed by some folks out on the West Coast and has now been kind of shared within the industry, we've been having an internal conversation sort of around the same thing. Because we have in this community, in Pinellas County, we have a number of different shelters that do different kinds of things, operate in different models. Some are open admission, some are no-kill or limited admission, some are municipal, some are nonprofit. And we wanted to keep that conversation alive. We wanted to keep that discussion going. And we wanted it to feel as inclusive as it could be for all of us to be a part of it. So we wanted to think about how we could present ourselves to the community and how we could get people excited about and feel included in the work that we were doing. So we put together a cross-functional team. Carolyn was a part of it, some folks in operations, our veterinary staff. We spent months literally just looking at what do we do, how do we do it, and as importantly, why do we do it this way? Why do we make the decisions that we make? Why do we function the way that we do? And we looked at other agencies and the way that they talked about themselves. We brainstormed a lot of different ideas. After about a year of really creative conversations, we came to this explanation of ourselves. SPCA Tampa Bay is driven by the well-being and the safety of all animals and people in our community. Our staff and volunteers love and respect every animal in our community. No person or animal is turned away if they're seeking assistance. We are a for-all shelter. We take responsibility for every animal that comes through our doors, even if the outcome could be humane euthanasia. That's not a decision we take lightly. We assess critical implications like the well-being of the animal and the safety of the community, and we will always be devoted advocates for the humane treatment of animals. We are really excited to call ourselves a for-all shelter, and we put together a video that shows you, in I think a really neat way, what that means. So what do you think? Isn't that neat? We're so excited about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Tara Yerkshat, who's going to talk a bit about, sorry, Carolyn, never mind. We'll get it right. Turn it over to Carolyn to talk a bit about Legacy of Love. So.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. One of the things I just, first of all, I'm so excited to see all of you, and please drink some of those mimosas in the back, because otherwise the staff are going to have to consume those, and you do not want us taking care of animals when we've been drinking mimosas. So please, please, please drink some of that. I do want to take 1 minute before I get started to where's Jennifer Gross? Jennifer Gross is our new Director of Philanthropy. She just came on board. We're super excited to have her with us, and she has taken over for Linda Bach, who many of you know. Linda had to leave because of family health issues, so we were very disappointed to lose Linda, but we're very excited to have Jennifer. So you may be speaking with her. And then Luann Dean in the back. Many of you probably know Luann has been with us a long time, so I wanted to make sure you got a chance to meet her. I did want to bring to your attention something that you will see. It's in your little gift bag. And we have, for those of you who may not know, we have a pet trust. And this goes back to the slide that Martha shared with you where, the pets have gone from being Snoopy out in the backyard to being pets that are in our homes with us. And one of the things that we get asked all the time for the older generation is, what happens to my pet if something happens to me? And Martha actually was one of the people who started this conversation because she and her husband were trying to establish a regular standard trust for their pets and just kept coming up against all these obstacles and barriers and expenses. And she said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So we have created, and we're very excited to roll out this, it's a pooled pet trust. And there's some information on it, and I'm just going to tease a little bit because we are going to be doing 4 sessions in 2020 that will go into depth about what this pooled pet trust is. But I just want to share with you, it's modeled after, if you think about people who have to deal with children with disabilities, somebody who has Down syndrome, for example. And so it's modeled after those human trusts to make sure that that child is cared for after the parents are no longer able to. It's modeled after that. So we are happy to share more information about it. There is a brochure in your bag, and we're doing 4, as I said, 4 individual sessions. So please come to that if you're interested. And now I would like to introduce you to a person who we did not know a very long time ago, but has since become a very dear friend of ours. Lene Nicholas came to us through our gala, and she has become so much more than a committee volunteer. She's become a donor and a partner. And so we asked her to come and speak to you, because you all are donors as well, about all the different ways that we can partner, because this partnership is super unique and creative, so I wanted her to talk about that. Lene, come on up.
Hello. Yes, I started rescuing iguanas back 30 years ago. I started with my children having pets, and then all of a sudden I had the house next door, put them in the swimming pool. They had a big area, and all of a sudden there was like 15 of them, and then it got to be 25 of them, and then it got to be 40 of them. So we had the Serrata Beach Resort, so I built a huge habitat there. And so we rescued them, and they came from all over the United States. So it's sort of a strange thing, because I get, be called the lizard lady, like crazy, whatever. But so what happened with us is that we sold the Serrata, and then we went to the Science Center, and they were part of the educational program there, using non-indigenous animals. So they had all these other animals in there. So with the kids program, and they were incorporated into it. Well, then the Science Center sold. So I'm like, whoa, where am I going to go? I can't have them in my neighborhood because they were there for a while, and my one neighbor's thought I was growing pot because I had these big fences, and they were calling the city on me, and it was getting crazy. So luckily, Linda, I said, what about looking for a home? And then Linda went to Martha, and she said, yeah, why not? So we built this habitat here. And so there are iguanas in there. And it also has a dual thing, because iguanas are vegetarians, and they actually can coexist with other animals. We had, at my house, I had rabbits with them, because they eat the same stuff. And so only the rabbits were digging out of the house, and the iguanas would go with them. And I had a hard time getting them out of there, but it worked out. So, but they can be with turtles, those type of things. So most of the animals in here are the iguanas. We have like 21 of them now. Half of them are over 10 years old. So they have issues like, any animal over 10, with either, liver issues, kidney issues. A lot of times they have a lot of breaks because they fall out of the trees or whatever. But, so we're here, we're pretty happy being here. And when we used to rescue, now we don't take any more rescues, we just take them from Pinellas County, which is a rare thing because there's not that many here. And if they were here, they probably froze. So we get just a few of them. It's just what it is. I think there's one in there right now that I've got to rescue, a little green one. But anyways, so that's what we're doing. We're pretty excited about it, and we get to see the habitat's really nice, and we're glad to be here and be part of the SPCA. So now we have a home.
So it's just all the different ways that a donor can get involved with us in a most unexpected way. So I just had asked Lene, because you will see the iguana enclosure on your tour if you're interested in the tour, and that's the newest part of our facility. And And then the other person I'd like to introduce you to is Tara Yerkshat. She is our Chief Operations Officer, and she oversees everything we do on the Largo campus related to animals. And Tara came on board about a year ago, and she has over 20 years of experience in this industry. And if you have seen some of those Animal Planet shows, oh, stop it. In Houston, she is from Houston, Texas, so it was the SPCA, right? Houston SPCA. She actually was in a little tiny bit of that, but she was part of that whole experience. She just has this depth and breadth of knowledge, and she has brought so much to our organization. So I've asked her to speak for just a little bit on how we care for animals in a shelter environment, the challenges we have, and the things we can do and the things we can't do, so you have a better understanding of where your money goes and how important your donations are. Tara?
Kissing a mic on Valentine's Day. Hi, I'm Tara. It's nice to see so many people here who are in support of what we do. Part of what Carolyn also asked me to talk about today is what we look like today and what we could look like in the future. What we look like today is we're a robust shelter caring for about 9,000 animals as you tour through. And the animals that we see here come in as owner surrenders, or they come in as transfers, or they come in as wildlife. And wildlife is quickly becoming a really significant part of what we do. About 30% of our incoming animals are wildlife. And currently we are working with rehabilitators across the county. But as time goes on, many of our county rehabilitators, they're not county employees, but many of those in our county are wanting to retire. The work of a wildlife rehabilitator is hard. It's every day. It's all day, every day. There is no vacation. There is no break. Lene knows this world. And they want to capture some time for themselves at the end of their career. And so we are absorbing more of that. And we have, you'll see our enclosures, which we will hopefully be putting into use in the next couple months, and then we will start that rehabilitation process here. And so that's kind of an exciting new add along with the iguanas. As to the animals that are here, they are they're being processed through the system. We're identifying who's a good adoption candidate, and if they're not, what next? Is foster an option? Is transfer out an option? Is euthanasia the best solution? Answer, if we've got an animal who's aggressive or very, very sick. And as we see more and more of an aging population of animals coming through, we're finding that we are dealing with more and more long-term chronic medical issues that are requiring quite a bit of additional care. Once upon a time, 20 years ago, when we were seeing large volumes of everything coming in, we didn't have time, the industry, not here, but everywhere, we didn't have time or resources to really look at a cat that had diabetes and say, what's our path for him? How do we get him into a home? 20 years ago, it was swipe left, I guess, which is a terrible way of looking at it, but you had to be focusing on the animals that you knew were going to go into adoptive homes very, very quickly. So we're in a new era, and we're caring for these chronic medical illnesses. We are looking for enrichment and enhancement for the stay here, for the animals that are here. All of our animals do receive some form of enrichment every single day. You guys are going to be part of that process in a few minutes. Did they know that? Okay.
No, not yet.
Oh, whoops. Oh. Don't tell me secrets. I'm not good at them. At any rate, so we are ensuring that the animals that are in our care are receiving individualized attention, and I think that that's really important, and I think that that sets us apart. And so all of that is great. However, we're doing this in a building that is falling apart around us. And that's what I want to talk about just a little bit, because we're really looking at what do we need for the future. And what we need is an opportunity to do better. So when we look to the future, I think that it's important that we be candid about the present. And so you guys are about to tour our facility, and many of you have been through it before. And you're not going to see what I'm about to tell you, because you're going to be focused on the animals. We lose people on tours because the animals are so cute, right? But you're going to be looking at the animals, and you're not going to see what I see when I walk through our building. So let me tell you what I see when I walk through our building. I see a building that, just to look at visually, is old. And what that actually means is it was built in a time when today's best practices were not those days' best practices, right? So we have a building that has inefficient airflow. But you guys are like, who cares? But that's really important, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And that impacts disease management, right? So what that means is if we don't have air coming out, if we don't have a good airflow, we have disease sitting in the air around us. We have an old drainage system. So again, you won't see it because that's not what you're looking for. But the way our drains work is instead of being individualized from kennels, it's a long trench drain, which means everything that we're hosing out is going past you, past you, past you, past you, past you. So if you're sick, you're gonna be sick, right? So that's old way of doing things, and it was perfectly acceptable. Today's standards are different. We don't have a strong sound abatement system in the kennels. They're loud. And as important as anything, we don't have air conditioning in all of the kennels. So again, what does this mean? What does this translate to? It translates to loud kennels, which causes stress in animals, right? It translates in trying to be as creative as possible in disease management and not always winning, right? It means that in addition to the comfort of the animals, there's discomfort for the staff. And what that means is when it's hot, it's 90 degrees outside, you're doing a lot of grunt work, and animals are barking in your ear all day long, every day. It means at some point you start looking for a new job, and that results in turnover, high turnover, right? And what we want is a staff that stays with us and stays family. So these are our challenges. And so I took a group on a tour yesterday, and I was in one of the cat kennels, and as we walked into the room, I'm just sharing this story to kind of take all these ideas and put it into context. We walked into one of the cat kennels, and immediately you could smell the smell of cat litter. Anybody who's got a cat, you know what that smell is. Even when the litter box is clean, it smells like cat litter. Well, if the smell is staying in the room, it's staying in there because we don't have good airflow. If the smell is staying in the room and the cat behind me sneezes, guess what else is staying in the room, right? So this is, again, the challenge of an old building that was put together with what was appropriate at the time, and times have changed. And so as we get these older animals and they are perhaps compromised in some way and they're staying longer, these challenges become larger. So if we, as we look to the future and we look towards a future that might include enhancements, whether that's enhancements to these buildings or a new building, we're looking at making all of these problems smaller, right? No shelter makes them all go away, but it makes it smaller, which results in, as much as anything, an enhanced customer experience, better animal husbandry for the animals in our care, and certainly taking care of our team, our family, right? So as we look and we know that a new shelter is in our future, it's a solution for our customers, it's a solution for our animals, it's a solution for our volunteers, and it's a solution for our community, which makes it, as I'm sure you can guess, a for-all solution.